Yeah, there he is.
Yes,
There
yes,
he is.
there we are.
There we go. There we go. We
Dr.
got everybody.
Madeb,
How you doing?
Hiya,
good.
Doc.
Happy
Great
New
to see you,
Year.
man. Great to see you.
Nunzio,
Okay.
this is a great picture because these are the two most favorite people that I have.
Wow.
You have to
I knew
understand.
that about Nunzio, but I certainly didn't know that about me. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy about this.
Listen, Nunzio, you know, in our religion, Friday night is a huge meal. Like it's like your
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And when I was in visiting my mother, I took my father to eat by Simon because that's the only place I wanted to be at.
That's great. That's
You
great.
know,
So that should tell you how much I think of him.
I know,
well,
I know, I know.
I want to tell you something. It would ideally, I mean, we're in three different places. Doc, are you in New York or are you in New Jersey?
I'm in New York.
Yeah, I thought I saw your library in the
Yeah.
background there. So so the ideal way to do this would be in person with a glass of wine.
That's
So
right.
I'm sorry, we're not doing it with a glass of wine. I would love to be doing it with a glass of wine. So next time.
But you
Please.
know what?
Yes.
Nunzio, for many times have been telling me he wants to get to Israel, and
Yes.
he has his cultural sites there too. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
tremendous amount of. So it will happen. I know it will happen.
It will happen.
Nunzio?
It would have happened this year. I mean,
Yeah.
2024. But I say to Angela, my wife, because she's dying to go to Jerusalem, I says, I promise that next year everything will be much better and we're going to go there. So
Yeah.
I
So
will
you
let
have
you
a
know.
place to stay.
I appreciate that.
Come, you have a place to stay, and my windows of my house actually look out at the walls of the old city. It's about a
Oh, wow.
7-minute walk from here.
Wow.
Just a 7-minute walk right to the walls, and we look
Unbelievable.
out actually at the Armenian church, and
That's beautiful.
we hear every, this is
Bell.
Jerusalem. So every bell that rings, I can hear it in my bedroom in the morning. Every mosque that has an announcement, I hear. It's really crazy. I mean, this is definitely God's city because it's like it just echoes with every religion. It's amazing.
Well, the Holy Land. That's the Holy Land. That's
It is.
the
It's
Holy
crazy.
Land, the universal Holy Land. And
Yes.
and that's what the challenge. Our challenge is not to prevail above others. Our challenge is to compromise because, look, at the end of the day, it's like a fine wine. You cannot find the perfect wine. There's
Yeah.
always something that happened. During the conservation, during the development, during the aging, or the making. And I don't like perfect wine. I like when the wine has a character. It has imperfections, and society has to learn that cannot be the perfect democracy. Everyone has to give in or give up something, and
Yeah.
that's I believe that the essential of hopefully in the future, not my time, but in the future will be considering that. I pray for that.
So actually, I wanted to start this off by saying welcome to the TheKosherTerroir, which is the podcast, and just say thank you very much for being on it and being here. Ralph told me about what you did, Nunzio, and I have a question for you. Why in the world would you make a donation to Israel? Number one, and what are your thoughts as to what's going on and in today's world? So,
well, thank you for asking that. I mean, I'm motivated to do certain thing through the sparkling of an action or of something that happened globally or locally. I don't care as long as that moves me, and if I can contribute either with a voice or with an act or a contribution physically, or donating, for me is important. I was very moved emotionally by what I saw on October 7th. I was very sad. I cried internally, and you have to understand that here in the United States, we don't have the privilege, to see what Europe television stations shows. For political reasons sometimes, but they show much more than we know that the CBS, NBC, and whatever, and even CNN shows it to us. And when I saw those atrocity, um, I've been really, connected to that kind of I would say, like, really sad moments. You know what I mean? And look, I understand that, that where you are in war, there are things that you do, that unfortunately, and I say with a very light meaning, is they're justified, because you are in
Yeah.
war. But when you're not in war, I mean, they're not justification from any, in this world and outside the world that can justify what I saw, what I learned, and what I experienced from far away, emotionally looking in, those families and children, and I don't want to go back there. So I said, I want to contribute. I contributed many times, even for things that happened in Bangladesh or whatever. But that was the time that I had to contribute in a very, for me, meaningful way, and more with the spirits than the merry dollars, which doesn't mean anything.
Well, I just really wanted to say thank you, because it really is meaningful that not only that you contributed, but that you thought to even contribute, because there was a time at the very beginning of this war when we were seeing all the marching and all of these crazy things going on all over the world and in the university campuses and what have you, that we felt very, very alone. Really, it was incredibly difficult. It's come around. There's a lot of countries that have come out positively saying, hey, look, we have freedom of speech, so people are, might be parading in our streets, but that's not how we feel as a country. And we've had a lot more support from people, and that's been incredibly positive. It's you don't need support from people when you're flying high. When everything's going great, that's not, people are always willing to help and support you. But when things are really difficult and tough, and we're facing crazy decisions that have a lot of negative publicity because of them, uh, it's important to have that support, and I really want to thank you.
No,
So,
no, I listen. I thank you to to say what you believe in, and the other reason why I was very moved is because I feel connected to a world that was unknown to me, and thanks to my very good friend Ralph Madeb and others, and don't forget, I'm also connected to families now, because my daughter is married with a very fine Jewish man, which I love him, and that he has like a great families behind that support whatever he believes, and we respect that, because at the end of the day, that is all about respect. And I cannot allow myself to break bread with Ralph and many others that I met through Ralph, and not show my support in a very small way, because it's a drop in the ocean what do we do, but at the least it's something, you know what I mean, that and I like that. Our beliefs, they don't have to stop with a practice that that is different, but it's all about family, about belief, about respect, about and that is what motivated me more than anything else. Beside the atrocity, and beside the images, and beside everything that that still are very marked in my mind, and which it's like a 9/11. You will never really forget those moments,
yeah.
So, and
Yeah, I
that's
will.
Simon, I want
Yeah.
to reiterate two points. His contribution was a matching contribution. He's making it seem like it was the initial contribution was $36,000.
yes.
Nunzio gave 10,000. It's not a small. He
No,
says it's
I
a
know
small,
that.
but it was a third. I matched. I was so overtaken by his generosity, which we raised it in about 12 minutes. I mean, you know, we put it on our Rosh Chodesh chat. The boys gave 16. Nunzio gave 10. I was so overwhelmed that I decided I'm giving 10 just to match Nunzio. So, you know, it's not like he gave $5. I mean, the guy, and I'll tell you, Nunzio left Winebow after 40 years or some crazy amount of time.
32.
Yeah, how much?
32 years.
52?
32. Hey, I'm way tall, but you know, I'm not that old.
Yeah. You got a full head of hair, Nunzio. That's pretty good. 32 years at Winebow and started his own company because of his passion. He doesn't need to do this. His wife also owns a restaurant. You know, it's you know, starting a whole new company. Believe me, I know the expenses, and to me, it was just so overwhelmingly generous that it says a lot. It says a lot of his character. Needless to say, that all these kosher wines that you're enjoying, all these kosher wines that are from Italy, are really under his direction. I mean, this is he has a huge contribution both financially here, and he has a, you know, let's say you know, I don't know how to call it, like a sort of like a super tentorial, we would say in medicine,
No,
that
spiritual
he has
commitment.
done. Yeah, spiritual commitment
It's
to
definitely a spiritual commitment,
yeah,
because to go with these things being kosher, it's not just becoming a distributor for the wines that are coming out of Italy. It's taking these wines and having to go through all of the grief of making them kosher,
yeah.
and then bringing them to the world, distributing to the world.
Nunzio has learned more about rabbinical kosher winemaking process and about mashkiach more than half the people drinking the wine.
I know. He was amazed. I'm still amazed. You know, sometimes when, listen, I don't know if we can get into this conversation already, but you know, seems to me that, you know, that is like a really open. So I was exposed to the kosher world in a very technical way, and I mean it, you know, in a sense that it was like a kind of like a, you know, I do this for you, you give this fee, that's it. You know, in other words, about 10 or 12 years ago.
That was before us.
Yeah,
man,
before Ralph and the Urban. I'm very good friend with I believe one of the top, if he's not the top, winemaker in the world. As a matter of fact, he's the president of Asianology in the world. His name is Riccardo Cottarella. And as a matter of fact, Riccardo Cottarella is responsible for making a project very successful. I don't know now in which stage he is, but there is the first project in Israel that, you know, that has vineyards between the Arabs, Palestinians, and the Jewish settlers, you know, where they make this wine, and he's under his governance, you know, in terms of technology. Yeah, so that is really something that, you know, that moved him to make a batch of kosher wine under somebody that commissioned this batch that lived in France, another winemaker, kosher winemaker. And so when the wine was ready to ship, no, Ricardo, that worked with Winebow with his own brands at that time called Falisco, asked the national importer, which was at that time Winebow, to do him a favor, you know, basically to enter this wine and to ship to a couple of, I believe, wine shops in Crown Heights here in Brooklyn. And that's how we started these things. And we did, like, you know, under a small fee, you know, just to facilitate this kind of a process, you know. And it went down for maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 years. The problem was like, you know, that here, not there, that we had some problems, you know, with these retailers, and we stopped that project without knowing that the production back to Italy was already advanced for 2 or 3 vintages. So those 2 or 3 vintages were not exported anymore in the United States, and they stayed in France, and we didn't know what happened. Well, I believe that, you know, that Ralph had this wine, he fell in love with this wine, and he called me. I was still, you know, part of the organization of of Weinbo. At that time, I was in charge of all the imports. It was like a big, huge book, about 110, $120 million book. So when he called me, I says, "Oh no, another one of these people that that they just want to me, just to import, and then I have to fight with the fee, blah 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 blah." But he said something that that they really resonate me, and I said that, Nunzio, I like these wines because I really want to change the perception of the uh, American Jewish drinkers and consumers that they have to find quality in their bottles. In my business, and I'm in the business almost 40 years, I started very young. I always been driven by passion on my own expense, because passion doesn't bring money. Passion brings gratifying yourself.
Yeah.
And so I saw in that statement, and I spoke on the phone with him, some sort of a light that was like mine, that was a mission more than like a business deal. And that is where I started to go ahead with that kind of request that you wanted. Of course, I had to make my money, so I fought with him with the percentage, but I give him a good discount. He was happy. I was happy for the company that I work for, and we moved really pretty quickly in advance this wine that at that time it was still the old wine, because he bought the vintage that was already done without this intervention, with his own team in Italy, with Ravma, I don't know if you know Umberto Piperno and so on. So anyway, so that's what really went forward. The thing that happened after that was related to me rather than this project, because I decided that after 32 years to resign from Weinbo. You have to remember, when I joined Weinbo, which was like the greatest company in the United States as an importer and distributor for Italian wines, and not only Italian. I started when the revenue was about $4 million. I left Weinbo when it was $875 million. And so I said, you know what? My path, is finished, because the next step would be to go to $1 billion. And that passion that I preserved, the fact that, that I can still shake hands with a callous, hands from a grower, the fact that I can dirty my boots going through the vineyards, and the fact that I can be in the cellars until 1 o'clock in the morning, tasting every single barrel with another producer, it will finish. And I'm still young. I don't want to be in that way. I don't want us to get stuck behind a computer or a screen, just preparing, reports and things like that. So I decided, with the blessing of my wife, because she's a saint, she's a really someone that that I devoted all my life for her, for my family, because she allowed me to do what I want to do. You have to understand that that I was in charge of Chile, Argentina, France, Portugal, Spain, Austria, Italy. I was traveling between 180, 190 days away from home, and that is for a tight family. You know exactly what I mean. It's very, very, very difficult. And if I didn't have a woman like my wife, I couldn't ever really achieved anything. So I was very blessed, to do that. And I went there. So listen, I sit down one night, in a beautiful restaurant, drinking beautiful wines, and says, Angela, I think that my life in Weinbo has finished, and I want to move on. And I want to visit places that I didn't visit yet, and I want to really go back again. And says, Nunzio, you are not young anymore, but if that passion is still alive, and if the passion is still strong, you will have my full support more than anything else. And that's what we did. So I after 6 months, I acquired this small company called Pane Bianco. Ironically, Mr. Panebianco, Livio, which was a friend of mine, passed on to 2015. But when I started in Weinbo, okay, I was at 25, I took his place in Weinbo.
Wow. Wow.
So that is a circle of life, in
Yep.
my book.
Wow.
And that's why I says, it's a sign of God. That's my company. I don't care how much. And fortunately, had the wines that I like. I changed a few things, but the skeleton of the company, and not the company, but of the portfolio, is still almost the same, which is,
And Simon, to me, this caused a little bit of a problem because in French wines, my craziness about French, and I know every single supplier and where the wine comes from. But in Italy, my education really came from my family in Milan, which we spoke about, and came from Nunzio. Like 90% of my education on wine came from Nunzio. And at that point, I was terrified because, he was going to have a non-compete, and we had a lot of stuff in the barrel. And I won't make a move. He's like I told him he's my Jewish Pope. I need blessing on these wines.
No, it was a challenge at the beginning, Simon, because I wanted to give him like a more assistance, but I know that I couldn't. But we also find a way to to navigate with these adversities, and we find also other companies, other wineries that that. They were friends, he relied on my expertise, and I appreciate that. I was very, I would say, thankful for that, because he started a beautiful project, and again, the motivation was aligned with my mission as a professional, which means that, that I could speak the same language in certain ways, with the same product made in different ways. I learned a lot, in the process. I learned a lot in the culture. I learned a lot, in the people, because I was allowed to spend many times, with these, with rough friends, which they respect me, I respect them. So, and that was like, like a kind of like a dive in a culture that it was for me reading only one way, and now I see in different ways, and that was for me
and Simon, he had open access to everything, meaning Kal Mashgiachs, the guys who are doing the wine, the actual employees. He was obviously the winemakers and all the rabbis, the rabbinical supervision. When we wanted to do mevushal wines, he was speculative as well. He understood the process. He called the people in France. He called the Rabbi Wolf from Amsterdam to understand the process. His reputation's on the line as well. You're taking doesn't matter from where, Austria, France, California, and you're going to pasteurize it or boil it. It's his name on the line. So
it was a big thing.
Every part of the process, Nunzio was given carte blanche. And if he didn't like something, he told me. If some of the, I'll give you some simple things. Some of the mashgiach were not following the winemakers. It's exact instructions. You take a guy like Beppe Pescaya, okay? No import to America. Nunzio, we found him through somebody else, but right away, I wouldn't even call him without Nunzio. You should know, Simon, Pescaya wines, they're coming to Israel soon. They're going to be, these have a lot of sacrifice, both Jewish and non-Jewish sacrifice to make that wine kosher. I call him the wine Nazi. He won't let them move right or left. When he didn't like how an employee, Nunzio had to get on the phone, tell the guy, do not bring me this mashgiach anymore, because he won't climb on the barrel, and he has a separate way to put the sulfite, or if it's citrate or whatever he wants to put into the barrel, into the tank. It has to be done his way. And if it's not his way, he won't let it. He won't let it done. The way he bottles it, he's very practical. I tell Beppe all the time, I can operate in his winery. It's spotless. You don't find it like in almost any other wineries. And Nunzio was involved in every single decision. I let like carte blanche. It wasn't like these things is just do what I say and you get a rubber stamp of approval. I mean, he really, really helped develop the quality, the passion, even quantity. He told me, Ralph, you're doing too much of this. You can get into trouble here. Like every little detail he was on top of.
You know, I can hear, the one thing I can hear loud and clear is the passion from both of you. Doc, I know your passion for ages, but and I have met you once, Nunzio. I don't remember exactly where, but we did definitely.
I'll tell you where. I'll tell you where.
It was in the
in
restaurant.
my house.
Oh, in
No,
your
in
house.
my
No.
house.
Right.
In
We had
my
a
house. You
tasting.
remember, Nunzio? In my house, we had like a pseudo. Was it the same Rosh Chodesh club people?
Right.
But we had the Spanish. Moises Cohen was there, and he put some of his wines out because we were hosting him because I guess it was an odd time and the royal guys couldn't get together. And I invited Nunzio to come, and we did a Falesco vertical there.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember very well.
That's where you met him.
So, yeah, no, I hear loud and clear the passion. And that's interesting. You gave me the beginnings of everything and what led up to it. I have a question for you. In the things that you're doing now, I don't want to ask you which wines do you love best, but actually the bigger question is this: you're in a unique position because you're tasting in a non-biased way, both the kosher and the non-kosher. Is there a difference in your mind that you're tasting out of the products that are coming out?
It's a great question because really, I mean, the first time that I drank kosher wine was when we. I remember that with the Wine Bowl, we were the official importer of Yarden at one point, which was like a kind of like became a very commercial, and they had like strictly kosher wines, obviously wines, and I have to say that that I was pretty impressed, for the quality and for the for the texture and things like that. At the end of the day, I mean, we're talking about Mediterranean basin. The sun is almost the same of Sicily and Sardinia, or the coast of Tuscany, or even Catalonia, whatever. So we are talking about for the most part, international varietals, which most of the time they come from greenhouses in France. We're talking about obviously method that 30 or 25, 30 years ago, they were still not up to the level of, technical level that now, we have. But I remember that, that was like a really a wine that, that didn't move me very well, but was done well, technically speaking. When I start to taste the wines through the M&M Imports with Ralph, and we tasted some French wines, at the beginning, I was really impressed. It doesn't matter if it's kosher or not kosher. I would drink this wine. I will drink very easily. So, and I start to learn a little bit more about the process, what it will entail. At the end of the day, it's just like a manipulation that is different, but it doesn't add or take out things that, that they are responsible for the final product. I'm talking about kosher and mevushal, obviously.
Yeah. So the next question is mevushal. Have you?
Mevushal, I refuse to to drink it and to accept it as wine. To be honest with you. I mean, with all the respect to the religious, I have a great respect to that, but for my belief and for what I wake up in the morning every day, for wines, I don't have a 1 ounce of understanding why we have to boil the wines, to be honest with you.
Okay. But have you tasted it?
Yeah, I did. That's why I feel like that.
That's why you feel like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a non-biased. That's perfectly fine. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for somebody to give me a real non-biased opinion.
No,
So
listen, again, I mean, there are many things, even in food, preparation, there are many things that, that you prepare in certain ways because the tradition and the method of the application has to be in that way for religious or for even for medical reasons, whatever it is. But for me, for our world, I don't believe that, it's something that, beside the religion factor, is something that is a very, um, let's put it this way. I believe that it's like, I don't like it. That's it.
okay, I get it. 100%. I get it.
Yeah.
You're echoing the same feelings of just about all of the high-end kosher wine drinkers. So that's why I was wondering. It's always good to hear an opinion that's outside of my own world.
Look,
And
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I mean, there are many
no,
things.
you're not.
There are many things that I started to appreciate it. Through these a few last years. Through the culture that invited me into. Ralph and many other people in his community. For example, I appreciate very much how you guys prepare meat. For
Mhm.
example, I love in the way that you guys have meat. Um, it's a cut, that is very, has to be done in certain ways, but the preparation is fantastic. I mean, I was invited many times by Ralph to attend these dinners, and that for me is very important because at the end of the day, we're talking about the tables. For us, as you guys, tables is a sacred momentum. Table, when you eat and when you gather everybody around the table, that is like really the most I would say high-end moment that you share with your family, with your friends, with the people that you love and respect. And sharing food, that is a practice that I respect very much. And if I'm invited to a table, if it's for business, or if it's for pleasure, if it's for family tradition or rituals, I mean, I'm very appreciative. And when I can match not only the people, but also the food with the wine, that is the supreme, achievement that you can get. And so I appreciate very much how cultures, that, especially, for what I believe that they are very close, to our tradition, the Italian tradition, like the Jewish tradition. Um, when I appreciate, they're making, I feel very close. I really feel
I'm,
close.
I'm, I, that's a huge compliment to Ralph.
Yeah, no,
That's a huge compliment to Ralph, and also to I've enjoyed meals at Ralph's as well. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
yeah, I it's a huge compliment. Baruch Hashem. Thank you, thank you.
of course.
I have I have there are a lot of subjects that I could bring up in this, but I want to pick one specific one because I would love to have you both back on again and to talk in the future. I want to pick one of the things that people, after your last conversation on the Kosher Terroir, Doctor, was that could you focus on one region and speak a little bit about that region? And having you, Nunzio, on the call on this program, I think it would be super enlightening to pick a region that's interesting to you both, that you maybe one that you're promoting a wine from now, or one that you are going to be promoting a wine from, and talk a little bit about it and what makes the region special, because I know each of the regions within Italy is its own world, and it has its own things that are special.
Nunzio, you pick. I'm ready for all of them.
Well, I want to be a little bit partial. Obviously, would be Italy, even though you asked me a question before, which is the wine that I like to choose more if I will have a possibility.
Yeah.
there is a wine that that comes not far away from Israel, which is in Lebanon,
Yeah.
and it's a Chateau Moussard. That is a wine that for me really in capsule everything that I like, between the soil, the tradition, the family behind, the varietals, and in the way that they make.
Tell me a little bit about it. It's white, red. What are the varietals?
It's the Bacal Valley, and I would like to talk. Yeah, I would like to talk next time, maybe with a glass of wine over this wine, which is become very rare to find bottles and vintages that I like. But this is one of the wine that that if I can get outside Italy all the time, beside the Chateauneuf du Pape from Beaucastel and some others. That's what I would like to to always have next to me to drink.
That's my lineage, Simon. Yeah, we're Lebanese by trade.
He's Lebanese.
Maybe we can get a.
You see, I cannot talk about these things because the first things that he does, he says, "Let's go there and make a kosher wine."
Let's go make a kosher. Yeah, maybe it'll be an international.
That's the danger
project.
that I always, have in front of me every time that I speak about a wine that he doesn't know.
Tell me a little bit about it, though. What's so special about it? What varietals and?
Well, we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, and a little bit of Cabernet Franc as well. They plant the more international varietals.
Okay.
And they are being, I would say, trained not only in the winery but also in the viticulture by French culture rather than their own. But
it's a Bordeaux blend,
real Bordeaux blend.
Bordeaux blend.
Yeah, it's a Bordeaux blend. But let's talk another time about that because now, let's talk about Italy because it's something that I don't know if I will have an opportunity to have you again.
So I was thinking of regions of Italy when I asked you about regions.
Okay.
So what's an interesting region in Italy where you feel it's just incredibly special?
So I'll start to say that that when you want to learn about Italian wines, which is the most difficult things to do, because Italy has this kind of values, that I always mention to any seminar or tastings that I'm invited to. And one thing is that that is a very, very, very unique is what do we call in Italian biodiversity, diversity, which means that you have more than 650 official varietals in Italy, which no other part of the world has it. I was reading some very, I would say, doubt information that more than 60% of the wines that they're being produced in France, they're made by 10 varietals basically, and is even higher when you come to the United States, for example, which I believe that was an average of 8 varietals, and when you go to Chile, is even more, and when you go to Argentina, is even more. When we talk about 80% is Malbec. When you go to Italy, I mean, it's a Jurassic Park, for when it comes to varietals. You know what I mean? So, and not only with wines, but also with food, because you can have the same dish prepared in a 50 variations, the same dish with the same ingredients, but different varietals. We're talking about onions, which is the simple food. Okay, we have almost like a 35 type of onions in Italy. So that is something that is a treasure. Okay, but it's also very difficult to understand. And the acumen that the gentleman that is in between us has, he understood right away that, and that's why for me, even though he comes from a different culture, when it becomes wines. For me, it's easier to talk to him about varietals because he understands, because he classified already, geographically speaking, historically speaking, and also making speaking. So, and that is something that I had to say, because learning about Italian wines is not an easy thing to do. When somebody comes to me and says, listen, Nunzio, I love Italian wines, but what I should do to learn? And he says, listen, can you invest $50? I said, yeah, I can. Do you have a friend that you can invest another $50? Yes. Do you have another friend that can invest another $50? Yes. Can you make 4 friends that invest $200? Yes. Okay, great. So go to a store and buy a case of every different bottles, 12 bottles. You go home with these 4 friends. You can have a pizza, you can have a hamburger, you can have a whatever you like. Don't worry, cheese or whatever. You cover each bottle with a brown bag and you start to pour. And you need to understand what is that the difference between one to each other. Doesn't matter if it's like a $10 or $50 a bottle, because diversity it's a kind of like really our strength in certain ways. So why is that? Because with that is also value. Most of the time you buy a wine that is at $20 or even $15 and you drink for like a wine that is costing from another region, another part of the world, that is at $40 or even $50. Value, it's incredible high. When we talk about Pinot Grigio, for example, which is the simple thing that that we can have, 95% of the production in Italy of a Pinot Grigio is consumed outside Italy.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? But
Wow.
it's a commodity that has a spectrum of quality that is infinite. You can buy something at $5 in the store to buy something that is $250 in the store.
It's
So
amazing to me.
all that you have to learn it, and it's not easy. It's not easy to learn. It's not easy to understand where this place is against with the other place. Blah 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 blah. So why I say that is because it's important to map out these kind of challenges before you dive in. And if you want to really be serious about Italian wines, you have to start from Piedmont. You have to start from Langhe. You have to start learning the diversity of a Nebbiolo, of a Barbera, of Arnese, of Dolcetto, and so on. And that is the first thing that you have to do. It's like learning math, at the beginning at 5 years old, with the additions. When you learn that, then you move, to Tuscany. And when you move to Tuscany, then you move to Veneto, and so on. So you have to take really region by region, sometime section by section, the Italian peninsula. I like to start with the north, central, and south. And that is the first time the church. For me, I'm not a gambler. I don't never gamble in my life, and it doesn't give me anything. But if I would have to gamble on the horse tracking, I would never I never put my money on the horse. I would put the money on the joker, the one that drives the horse. And that's why I did, at the beginning of my career, I always follow the winemaker rather than the vineyards, the locations, and so on. My network, I spend like at least an hour a day to go around my connection in Italy with the winemakers that now they're my age. Now they're new ones that are coming in, and says, why is that? Why this? What is that you find that with the climate, especially now with the climate change? I have to be in connection with these winemakers, and that's why I don't have for now a preferred region. I do have for now, something that is developing, because in my humble opinion, when a wine becomes a trend, is already late. It's a trend because everybody knows that it's a trend, but
Yep.
it's not undiscovered. So I like when I go in Italy and I move on from or move off from my program or my planning, and I go and take my car, to a place that I was never before, because I want to learn about the varietal that nobody knows. I want to learn about the soil that is a volcanic, that is meeting with the granitic soil, and what is developing on that. I want to learn about that gentleman that has only 3 hectares of land with an hectare and a half of an old vines. What is he doing there? I want to learn how he treats the wood aging, if so. So those are the things that I would say claim my interest. I like the Etna wines in Sicily, not now that everybody knows. I started to go to Sicily on the Mount Etna when it's still active as a volcano, 25, 30 years ago, and that's when I discovered like the potential of that land. So that's what I did. But if I have to put myself on the plane and I have only one place to go and match my thirst of wine with the food, because they always have to go together, for now will be Sicily.
Wow.
Even though my love is with the Piedmont.
So let me ask you a question, because you really kind of blended two things together, at least two things that people normally separate, but you really brought them together. I found that there are winemakers who focus on the process and winemakers who focus on the vineyard. And there are some winemakers who focus on both. And, ideally, you can't make good wine without great grapes, but very often winemakers leave that to
Agronomists.
to the growers. But
Agronomists.
agronomists, right. And agronomists is the better answer than growers, because
Yeah.
agronomists are the people who are actually really direct how everything goes. Is that the same in Italy, or do you find that the winemakers
My
have to
God,
be
yes. Oh my God,
amazing
yeah.
agronomists as well?
We have an amazing agronomist.
Okay.
If you want to build a beautiful home, you need an architect and you need an engineer.
Yep.
The architect doesn't know the weight that the floor of that particular home has to hold, but he knows how to design inside. And that's what this blend is important. I import a wine that is from Bulgaria, a section of the northwest part of Tuscany. And this family that owns these vineyards, they're very special. And the father, his name is Attilio Scienza. For me, is the most important agronomist in the world. I have several books that that I read all the time, and opens, new frontiers for me all the time. He is not the winemaker, and he knows, but he's a great agronomist. And his job is to find the combination of the varietal in the particular vineyards and bring the fruit healthy to the hand of the winemaker, which, by the way, is his son. So
Okay.
it's like a huge family effort. So what I'm saying here is, yes, you can find somebody that that knows and recognize the challenges in the vineyards, but the truth of the matter is that that you should define the two roles.
Okay.
That is important. Unless you have 5 hectares of vineyards, and and that vineyards is in the family for the past 3 generations, and everything about the vineyards.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But if you start to have a 20, 30, 50 and beyond hectares, you need defined roles.
Got it.
So that's what it is. Look, Simon, I think that that I believe that, and I go back on the kosher side now. I believe that what Ralph started, it's not just another business. I think that what he started is a movement of people that in your community has been exposed, and for the first time, not only for the kosher wine that that's part of your daily routine if you drink, but exposed to the quality of the wines. I quite often meet people that they are in the fashion industry, that that they are Jewish people, okay, and and the made in Italy for them is like like the mantra, obviously textiles and shirts and whatever. And I am amazed at how they really understood, how really the quality and the concept of the Italian manufacturers. They cannot drink, our wines. They cannot eat our food, but they absorb, through certain functions that we have in Italy, hotels, vacation site, art, textile, which can be used from both cultures, without restrictions. And I do believe that, that can be done also with the kosher wines made with the quality grapes, quality production, with the quality, project behind. And that's why I believe that Ralph, with his vision and with his determination, started that. And until that light and that little, fire that I discovered through a phone call, most 10 years ago, almost, until that is present, he will have always my back.
Hey, you know, I I want to thank you because I've taken up a lot of your time, but I want to thank you, and I also especially for giving us some incredible insights into what makes Italy so special and what makes Italian wine so special. Your description of the details, and it's not just about the varietals, it's about the varietals and how they interact with the regions and the diversity of everything. I never thought about it that way. You opened my mind, and I thank you. I really thank you for that.
Thank you
You
very
know,
much.
I want to end off on something. I want to
Please
end off on few more minutes, but
take your time.
um,
I
yeah,
don't want
Simon,
to.
because I feel like the listener, we should give him a little direction, and let Nunzio do it. I don't want to bias his opinion. Nunzio, my entire portfolio: North, Central Italy, Tuscany, Campania, Piedmont. We even have Amarone being developed by Fumanelli. By the way, that would be also another interesting interview because that's totally different. Nunzio met him. Armando Fumanelli, 28 generations, speaks English very well. Would be great for a podcast as well. But Nunzio, our entire portfolio. Let's say you were the professional speaker on behalf of M&M. What and somebody calls up Simon and says, Simon, I love the podcast. I want to try one of the wines. So what would you recommend from all the different regions? Let's say maybe somebody to start and somebody, let's say, who has a little experience. We're not talking about the super experience like Simon or myself, but let's say an entry-level guy comes in and says, Simon, what did Nunzio say for an entry-level guy to try to get into the wine from my portfolio, let's assume? And let's say somebody who wants to go a little further. Which wines would you recommend?
As an entry level for white, it would be the Arnese from Pescaia. And from red, I would say still now, the Montepulciano from Valle Reale. I like that kind of a vibrancy. I like that kind of a spice that that is the same on the red. I'm a little bit biased because I suggest the wines that that they are very, very, very close to the conventional wines. Okay, which most of your book is like that. That's why I
Yeah.
like it. So as entry level, I like those two because I believe that they're very I would say fedele, like true through the kosher. I mean, the non-kosher side. As the upper one, I like the ones that that Alessandro Scelai is making, for you. I think that the guy is is doing a great job.
So
Especially
Simon,
those.
yeah,
especially the Rocca di Frossinello. I think that
yeah.
I believe that that is the pinnacle of that conjunction, between your team in Italy, you as a vision, and Alessandro that understood, after few discussion that I had also with him, but he's a very intelligent guy, so he didn't need me, but he understood what was your final point, so destination, and then why. And I believe that that he surpassed all my expectations.
So
And I have
let's,
to say that that also the Brunello from Tassi. I mean,
yeah.
I'm very, 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 very impressed about that. I
So
mean,
that, yeah.
to the
So
fact that
I would have saved that. I would have saved that for the wine geeks like us. I mean,
yeah,
that's
I
the
know, but
highest rated. It's the highest rated kosher wine ever given by Parker. Is ours.
yeah, I mean, I mean, listen, I was that's a different story, but anyway, I think that that was really a testimony that quality is no compromise with the function of intervening with the different hands, and that's what you have to believe and bring it on.
So Simon, let me just let me. People don't realize that Nunzio just gave you literally 1,000-page book on what we've done. I mean, he says it in in code words, so to
No,
speak.
what you
But
did for me, no, you. Because,
I don't know how much we'd have done.
no, it's you,
So
because
the entry,
I know
yeah,
that. I mean, beside the vision that, and listen, we are not here to to violate each other, but
yeah,
we are here to make sure that whoever read or sees your podcast or read, I mean, understands, through your voice, through your platform, which it's impressive what you do. They have to understand that there is there is not a business model here. That's why I said this is a
yeah,
mission.
yeah,
This is a mission that is greater than everything else. Look what Ralph has behind. How many books? I've been in his house. I mean, it's a temple of studying. Okay, this gentleman, only has to study for his own religion purposes, which I respect very much, not only for his professional purposes, but he has time to dedicate it to this great crusade, because drinking quality wines in these very conservative communities, which I learned more through him and through this experience of my life, it's not the easiest thing to do. And I believe that I tell him all the time, he has to take a little bit more ownership of that practice. Leave others to do the mechanical stuff, and he has to be a little bit more involved. I know endless times that he spends money, energy, and time away from his family to educate people, and that is the most beautiful thing.
Yeah,
So
but he's also a hands-on person.
yeah,
So
yes,
he's a slightly obsessive compulsive.
yeah,
So
yeah. You cannot talk so freely in front of him about
I
what
know,
Yeah,
what
I
he
yeah,
know,
wants to
I
say.
know. I
Let's
can't.
do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
but
But I mean, in the summary there, I mean, you have great wines, Simon. You're talking about a beautiful white entry level. Entry level
yeah.
for our price market. Nunzio's price market and ours are totally different because
Oh,
of the cost of the rabbinical supervision. But a Pascaya Arnaz can be matched up against anybody's Sincere in the kosher Sincere market. And I have two Sinceres. I think it's just beautiful northwest region of Piemonte up north, and it's an excellent. We have a mevushal and non-mevushal, right? So for the purists and the non-purists, but that's a great, and what he spoke about, Valle Reale, is a Montepulciano de Abruzzo, which is authentic. It's an authentic entry level. You're not going to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars like even what we like our Brunello, but it's a tremendous amount of value in that money. Senesano is a new ripening vineyard, entry level, beautiful bottle, short time in oak.
I consider them a hearty wine.
Yeah,
Hearty
yeah,
wines, you know?
yeah, and it's those are great recommendations for the people who are going into the second chapter. You know, Rocco de Francinello. By the way, Simon, that's an excellent other idea. I said Armando Fumanelli, but not to take away from Alessandro Celai. He's the king. He's the king of Tuscany at this point. I mean, the Italian media writes of him as he's the one of the top Tuscan winemakers. Also, a lot of history. And guess what? With Nunzio's help, we made some of the top. Zaki's put, just so you understand, Zaki's from California, very famous, put Sodi di San Nicolo, which is the top Castellare Sangiovese based wine. It has to be labeled IGT because it doesn't stick to the norm values. But
Sangiovese,
which is the father clone. I think we mentioned this one. It got #1 wine of the year. And the same year we made it. 2019 was the first year we made it. We made that kosher. Now, he talked about Rocco de Francinello. The #1 selling Super Tuscan was Le Sugare, was ours. We making the higher level, and we made Baffanero, all due to Nunzio's help. These are talking about Super Tuscans. There's Baffanero, which will be released soon. I'm not sure when, but it's an Italian Merlot aged. The whole run, Simon, is 5,000 bottles. The entire production. And we made the 300 for the first year because that's all he would let me. And now that we got used to each other, 600. Now, this is a great guy to get on your podcast because he speaks English very well. By the way, once again, Nunzio introduced me to him, which is why he gets a lot of them. But like he said, for the guys who are coming into the second level, Super Tuscan's the way to go. Chianti is the way to go because it's, you need to be able to go anywhere you go in the world, and they're going to ask you about Italian wine. You got to know Chianti. You need to know the Chianti region. You need to know what it tastes like. You have to know why it tastes different than a French Bordeaux. I'm a crazy Francophile. Me and you've drank, 2000 Leoville. We've drank Pape Clements in the new era. We've drank 2000 Malartic 2.5, and these aren't even my wines, right? I don't import them, but we've made Smith Lafitte, La Femme Rocher. I mean, and these are a different profile. It doesn't sit to the same norm. Doesn't mean that, the problem with, I think, in our people, and I think Nunzio's just appreciating this, and Simon, you've spoken to thousands of winemakers. The problem, which is what made me, is our palate was driven to a certain type, over-oaked, very heavy wine, 60% volume, alcohol volume. That's how our wine was pushed us in. And I think it's now time to separate, separate the boys from the men, so to speak. That is, we need to see what elegance is. We need to know what cherry and balsamic, which you find in Sangiovese-based wines, Chianti, are different than the big blackberry, jammy, heavy wines. I'm not saying they're not good. What I'm saying is they're different.
It's very different, yes.
And I'll tell you this, and you ask me, Simon, what's the biggest thing I find? And I'll tell you, Nunzio, this is something we've touched on. I give them a Brunello blindly, My Brunello Reserva got almost 100 points by Parker. The only reason I didn't mention it was because it was not blind. Our original 2016 Franchi Tassi wine was blind tasting with the non-kosher, got 96 points, which is the highest Parker ever gave to any kosher wine, right? You give him a Brunello, it's sexy, it's sultry, it's seductive. It's not big, bold, jammy. It's the maestro in the conducting. It's a violin, it's not the drums. And so people don't appreciate what that nuance in that wine is. You want an elegant wine. Yeah, maybe you won't eat it with, braised short ribs. You need something a little bit more gentler on when you pair it. But a Brunello, they command the highest respect. LVMH just bought Biando Santi because it's a huge wine. Those are the same guys who make Chateau de Yaquim, which is a Sauternes. Yeah. So, it's about education. It's about explaining to them it's not the same wine. And a Brunello commands the highest dollars in the kosher and non-kosher market. And if we don't educate them on it, they'll just think that this is just water. Red water, as one of the Hasidim called me. But I think that it's an education and it's a process. And I will tell you, Simon, Nunzio tried to leave us 10 times. I mean, you don't need me anymore. Every time he says you don't need me anymore, I double down on my contract.
No, but you're right. I mean, I'm right. Say, I'll be always here, but you don't need, me, because you reached the level now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
It's a great working relation. It's a great working relationship. Now we're great friends. I give it, every time I have an Italian linguistic problem, some of these winemakers are really rustic. We're making a barbaresco for a gentleman who doesn't even know how to say hello in English. I need Nunzio to translate everything. But this is the type of wines we wanna bring to the market. We want to bring the Barolos. We want to bring the barbarescos, which are coming. They're just, they need time to age. But in terms of what you can find now in the market, is what he's saying. You get a Falanghina from Campania, it'll match up against any white wine of anything you have. And by the way, you know how much Burgundy, I love Chardonnays. I mean, we made a Chardonnay from Piscaya because it's on the same altitude as Burgundy, and he was trained there. So that's why that's why I made it. But the things open up, and I think that I think it's a great working relationship, and there's great options now in the Italian kosher market. And that's only half my portfolio. I have a whole French portfolio, but I think the excitement for me is, and it's really thanks to Nunzio, is how to develop this market.
I love it. I totally love it, and I love your pink water.
Yeah,
it's
true.
I know exactly what you're talking about, because some people need their mouth totally filled with something, and these are so elegant, and they're so special, and the textures and the nuances of tastes are just spectacular. I just absolutely love it.
And Nunzio mentioned a lot. Israel is Mediterranean basin. I mean, the climate of Israel and the climate of Italy is the same. The people are the same. The culture is the same. And again, I can't thank Nunzio enough for all the help. But look, it pays back. Look, he sees what we're doing. He donates to our causes. I think that for that reason alone, we should continue to drink Italian wine, even in this. No, I mean, people like to say, "Oh, we should only drink Israel." I think now is the time that everybody has to stand together. There was another time in history that this happened. I'm not talking about in Corona. In Corona, the Israelis went to there was the highest death rate in Corona. Simon, you should know, is in northern Italy. The medical care is terrible. It's very old-fashioned. There's a lot of old people, older generation is living in the north of Italy. You're talking about in the Veneto area, in these areas up north.
Yeah.
And Israelis were the first to go from Israel to northern Italy. Why? Because you have a lot of alumni who were trained in Italian place that came back and came back and helped these hospitals up north during COVID. I mean, a lot of people from Israeli doctors that were trained there went back and up. I mean, our countries are intertwined, and I think that this project is just another chance of intertwining. And you mentioned your first, you said the world goes round. I've recently had conversations with Falesco, with Dominga. There's the Jubilee coming up, right, in a year or so. And we are very excited to start to see if we can develop a kosher wine for that time period. The fact that they came to us to talk to us about that really shows you the connection between Italy and Israel, the Jewish people and the Jewish people and the Italian people together as a whole. And it's very exciting. And I hope that God affords me the opportunity just to continue to do this. It's a great feeling.
You know that you have always my full support. So I'm here to whatever I can, to any cause, but I'm here.
Beautiful.
I love it. Thank you very
much for inviting me, Simon.
You're invited. You're invited. I'm not inviting you. This isn't just lip service. I have a room. I'll even get the pillows ready. Ready. And
he has a great wine cellar, Nunzio. He has a great wine cellar.
I have some very interesting wines, not only Italian, but I do have some of the Italian wines in my cellar as well.
That's great.
And I would love to treat you and your wife. please
appreciate it.
to come.
I appreciate it. Appreciate
Okay.
it very much.
All right.
Okay,
So
gentlemen.
thank you very much for being on the Kosher Terroir. And
Thank you so much
I really
for
appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
thank you very much for allowing me to talk, and I couldn't have a better experience for the first time with you and Dr. Madeb. And I just opened a Brunello di Montalcino 1988, this morning. So she's breathing because we have a Sunday middle. So nice time to sip on it.
Wow. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
You know that I love you. And Simon, thank you. And you are now I have another good friend in Jerusalem. So
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
you.